Hi, this is Brad Constantine, and this is a podcast recording of the Old Testament. Although this is not an official recording of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, every effort's been made to be as doctrinally accurate as possible. I'll be using for the text the Joseph Smith translation of the Old Testament, along with many commentaries from general authorities of the Church, BYU professors, Bible scholars, and others. This format will be very detailed, and so if you want a deep analysis of the Old Testament, you come to the right place. Thanks for your attendance. Hi there, this will be for 1 Kings chapter 6. So the Temple of Solomon is under construction. Verse 1, and it came to pass in the 408th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. President Brigham Young said, the pattern of this temple, the length and breadth and height of the inner and outer courts, with all the fixtures thereunto appertaining, were given to Solomon by revelation through the proper source. And why was this revelation pattern necessary? Because Solomon had never built a temple and did not know what was necessary in the arrangement of the different apartments any better than Moses did what was needed in the tabernacle. Verse 2, and the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. A comparison of the plan of Solomon's temple with that of the earlier tabernacle shows that in all essentials of arrangement and proportion, the two were so nearly alike as to be practically identical. The dimensions of the Holy of Holies, the holy place, and the porch were in the temple exactly double those of the corresponding parts in the tabernacle. That was by James E. Talmage in the House of the Lord. The temple was about 100 feet long and 30 feet wide. It stood on a platform about 9 feet high. The temple itself was about 45 feet high. Salt Lake Temple is 186.5 feet long, 118.5 feet wide, and 210 feet high. That was from the Old Testament manual. Verse 3, and the porch before the temple of the house, 20 cubits was the length thereof, according to the breadth of the house, and 10 cubits was the breadth thereof before the house. And for the house he made windows of narrow lights, recessed and latticed windows, and against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the oracle, and he made chambers round about. The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits broad, and the middle was 6 cubits broad, and the third was 7 cubits broad. For without in the wall of the house he made narrow rests round about, that the beams should not be fastened in the walls of the house. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone. Masonry became a profession, and the graded orders therein established have endured until this day. That was by James Talmage. Made ready before, and it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with winding stairs into the middle chamber and out of the middle into the third. So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. And then he built chambers against all the house 5 cubits high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou wilt walk in my statutes and execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then will I perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel. So Solomon built the house and finished it, and he built the walls of the house within with boards of cedar, both the floor of the house and the walls of the ceiling, and he covered them on the inside with wood, and covered the floor of the house with planks of fir. And he built 20 cubits on the sides of the house, both the floor and the walls, with boards of cedar. He even built them for it within, even for the oracle, or the innermost room of the temple, Temple of Solomon, the Holy of Holies, even for the most holy place. And the house, that is, the temple before it, was 40 cubits long. And the cedar of the house, which was carved with knops and open flowers, all with cedar, there was no stone seen. And the oracle he prepared in the house within, to set there the ark of the covenant of the Lord. And the oracle in the forepart was 20 cubits in length, and 20 cubits in breadth, and 20 cubits in the height thereof. And he overlaid it with pure gold, and so covered the altar, which was of cedar. So Solomon overlaid the house within with pure gold, and he made partition by the chains of gold before the oracle, and he overlaid it with gold. And the whole house he overlaid with gold, until he had finished all the house. Also the whole altar that was by the oracle he overlaid with gold. And within the oracle he made 2 cherubims of olive tree, each 10 cubits high, that's 15 feet tall, 15-foot angels, and 5 cubits was the one wing of the cherub, and 5 cubits the other wing of the cherub. From the uttermost part of the one wing unto the uttermost part of the other were 10 cubits. And the other cherub was 10 cubits. Both the cherubims were of one measure and one size. The height of one cherub was 10 cubits, and so it was on the other cherub. And he set the cherubs within the inner house, and they stretched forth the wings of the cherubims, so that the wings of the one touched the one wall, and the wing of the other other cherub touched the other wall, and their wings touched one another in the midst of the house. And he overlaid the cherubims with gold, and he carved all the walls of the house round about with carved figures of cherubims and palm trees and open flowers within and without. And the floor of the house he overlaid with gold within and without. And for the entering of the oracle he made doors of olive tree. The lintel and side posts were a fifth part of the wall. The 2 doors also were of olive tree, and he carved upon them carvings of cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and overlaid them with gold, and spread gold upon the cherubims and upon the palm trees. Think this is covered with gold? So also made he for the door of the temple posts of olive tree, a fourth part of the wall, and the 2 doors were of fir tree, and 2 leaves of the one door were folding, and the 2 leaves of the other door were folding, and he carved thereon cherubims and palm trees and open flowers, and covered them with gold fitted upon the carved work. Holy mackerel, sounds like a lot of gold, doesn't it? While Solomon thus wisely and in the fear of God ordered his government, and the country enjoyed a measure of prosperity, wealth, and power never before or afterwards attained, the grand work of his reign yet remained to be done. This was the building of an house unto the name of Jehovah God. We have already seen how earnestly David had this at heart, how fully it corresponded with the divine promise, and how fitly its execution was assigned to Solomon as the great task of his reign, viewing it as typical of that of David's greater son, meaning Jesus. As might be expected, all outward circumstances contributed to further the work. Israel as a nation was not intended to attain preeminence either in art or science. If we may venture to pronounce on such a matter, this was the part assigned in the providence of God to the Gentile world. To Israel was specially entrusted the guardianship of that spiritual truth, which in the course of ages would develop in all its proportions, until finally it became the common property of the whole world. On the other hand, it was the task assigned to the world to develop knowledge and thought so as to prepare a fitting reception for the truth, that thus it might be presented in all its aspects and carried from land to land in a form adapted to every nation, meeting every want and aspiration. This was symbolically indicated even in the building of Solomon's temple, for if that temple had been exclusively the workmanship of Jewish hands, both the materials for it and their artistic preparation would have been sadly defective as compared with that of what it actually became. But it was not so, and while in the cooperation of Gentiles with Israel in the rearing of the temple, we see a symbol of their higher union in the glorious architecture of that spiritual house built up of lively stones. We also recognize the gracious providence of God which rendered it possible to employ in that work the best materials and the best artificers of the ancient world. That was by Edersheim. Verse 36, and he built the inner court with 3 rows of hewed stone and a row of cedar beams. In the 4th year was the foundation of the house of the Lord laid. In the month Ziph, and in the 11th year, in the month Bul, which is the 8th month, November, was the house finished throughout all the parts thereof, and according to all the fashion of it, so was he 7.5 years actually, in building it. The Magen David is always shown as 2 interwoven triangles. One possible explanation is that the 2 triangles represent a characterization of the Urim and Thummim. This is the Star of David that we're talking about. According to statements attributed to Joseph Smith, the Urim and Thummim were 2 triangular stones connected by a silver bow. One pointed up and the other pointed down. Superimposed, they make a fascinating Magen David, the Star of David. According to a paper given at Hebrew University by John Tavetes, now senior researcher at Farms, BYU, the words Urim and Thummim may come from Egyptian words similar to RMMM and TMMM, one meaning yes or act upon it, positive, the other a more negative, meaning leave it alone. That was by Daniel Rona. So anyway, that's the end of the chapter, and we'll see you next time.